Supervisor Michael G. Garbo, United States Department of Justice, DEA. Deputy Sheriff Dale L. Wyman, Hardin County Sheriff's Office, Tennessee. Corporal Timothy Michael Tanksley, Alta Police Department, Georgia. Police Department Dylan Harrison, Alamo Police Department, Georgia. Master Trooper Adam Galbert, Louisiana State Police, Louisiana. Master Deputy William Edward Marsh, Rowan County Sheriff's Office, North Carolina. Sergeant Michael Rudd, La Paz County Sheriff's Office, Arizona. Deputy Sheriff Juan Miguel Ruiz, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Arizona. Firefighter EMT Kelly William Fry, Cumberland, Maryland. Fire Chief Randy Miner, Marion Township, Ohio. Firefighter EMT Michael Pickering, Chicago, Illinois. Welcome back to American Sons Podcast. My name is Christian.
Hey, it's Dylan.
And it's Hunter.
And before we get started, I just want to give a special shout out to Scooter Brown Band for that intro and the outro you hear at the end. Today we have a special guest. Dylan, take it away.
Yeah, Dr. B. He's a family friend, chiropractor, and he's here to talk about what's going on. It's a topic that we're talking about a lot here lately, but it's the biggest one going around, and everyone needs to be as informed as possible, and he's here to help us with that. So without further ado, Dr. Brian.
Hey, guys. Good to meet everybody. Thanks for having me here. So my first podcast, so be gentle on me. But Dylan asked me just to come and explain a little bit about some of the interaction I have with patients, interaction I have with colleagues. I have a family member that's a infectious disease expert, so I get a lot of information from him. And I also had COVID, which I didn't even know I had COVID, but I did have it. So I just wanted to share some of the information I've had, some of my interaction, and some of the research. I'm one of those guys that's heavy into research. Granted, it's more spinal biomechanics and radiology, but I have access to credentialed information that maybe the average person doesn't have. So I'm going to go over a little bit of that with you guys today. Hopefully I answer all of the questions, and I told the guys here tonight that if I get too deep into something or too far down a rabbit hole to pull me back, so hopefully they're going to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive right into all the information, why don't you give us just a little bit of background? You said you're into the chiropractic, but...
So yeah, a little bit about me. When I was a kid, I broke my back and didn't know that I broke my back. I fell out a window, and I had all kinds of issues with my back initially. By the time I was taken to the hospital and got x-rays, it was too late. My back was already healed, but I still had continued problems. And the only thing that ever gave me relief was chiropractic care. But it was the traditional type of chiropractic care, more the twist and crack and pop and type stuff. So long story short, I ended up dedicating my life to chiropractic. I went to school, got involved in research, and kind of difficult to explain this without having the instrument in front of me for the visual, but got involved in developing an instrument that measures how much each of the bones in your spine moves. Doesn't involve radiation. And it basically allows me a way to measure how much of those bones are moving, which bones are moving normally, and which ones are restricted. And it's a way to very specifically move certain bones without moving all of the bones at one time. So I tell you that to tell you this, that I have a really in-depth background of spinal biomechanics. I also have my postgraduate degree in neuroradiology and in physical therapy. So that's not directly related, obviously, to epidemiology and vaccines, but I know more than you guys do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I can hopefully bridge the gap from the real in-depth research to commonplace and average guy type stuff. So that's basically how I got to where I'm at. Dylan's a family friend. His whole family's friends of mine. And we just got talking, and we hunt together, and we just have a lot of common themes. So he asked me to do this podcast and just kind of go with it and talk about whatever's important. And what's going on today is mandates and masks and vaccines and natural immunity and all the rest of that stuff. So I told these guys just to kind of guide me along, and if they have any questions, certainly ask. But I guess going back to when COVID first happened, one of the health facilities that I'm on staff with tested all of the providers, and I tested positive for the antibodies. This is back in January of 2020, really just at the cusp of when COVID was starting. And I tested positive. I didn't know it at the time that I had COVID, but I was actually in Russia, and I flew out of JFK, and most likely that's where I got COVID. But some of the falsehoods, so let's just start with this. They say that if you have any lung diseases, that you're more inclined to have COVID and have it to be serious. In my case, that was a load of crap. Okay, I have an autoimmune disease, lung disease called sarcoidosis, which is very serious. You know, I have a difficult time. I can run really good for about 100 yards, unless there's a grizzly bear behind me. Then I run out of air. And it's just one of those things. I don't know how I got it. It's self-limiting. I treated way back when with it, and it's never going to get any better, but it hasn't gotten any worse. But I'm certainly in that demographic that would have known that I had COVID.
Right.
I would like to think I didn't get any symptoms because I have a well-adjusted spine and I eat relatively healthy. But who knows? You
And
know,
what are two of the foundational things to all health? Gut health and the nervous system, which the spine is the
nervous
biggest part
system, you know, the one thing you can't do anything about is genetics.
of. Right.
So that makes it all the more important to make sure that you eat correctly and that you get the right amount of sleep, you don't have a ton of stress, and that your nervous system's functioning correctly. I mean, as chiropractors, really simply what we do is make sure that there's no interference on any of the spinal nerves as they exit your spinal system. You know, you have all those vertebrae. We want to make sure that we don't have a hard bone on a soft nerve. And that's basically it. You can argue about what's the best way to do it, but at the end of the day, all chiropractors agree on that simple premise. So, so I came back and I tested positive for the antibodies, and the facility that I am on staff with had a meltdown because I was the first doctor that tested. So the big question was, well, how did you get it? Well, how did you feel? Well, where were you? And I'm like, I don't know. I was in Russia. Like I didn't know I'd had anything. You know, it was cold as hell over there, so I had a runny nose, but I didn't feel badly. So then the pandemic started. Then it was the flights shutting down from overseas and all the rest of this stuff. You know, then they started with the masks. And it was first, if you remember, way back when, they said that it had to be more of a cartridge type of a mask, obviously, like you would use if you were going into mold remediation or painting or something. You need the filters. And then they realized, yeah, that's probably not going to be real likely that people are going to be walking around looking like Darth Vader. So we're going to decrease the bar to the N95 masks. Then there was a huge rush on that. The problem is that there was never really any science behind it. And there's a lot of science behind that now. And the science behind it now says it's just to make you feel better. It doesn't do squat to stop a virus. The viruses are so small that short of wearing a respirator type of a mask, it doesn't do anything for it. Now, obviously, if you're sneezing and coughing up a lung, it's going to certainly slow the aerosol spread going out. But at the end of the day, if you're that sick, whether you've got COVID or you got pneumonia or you got hay fever, you shouldn't be going out around people anyways.
Right, stay home.
So it's just a common sense type of approach. But a lot of these things that have come out are feel-good type fixes, but they're not based in science. And I have a ton of research, and it's not from some crackerjack guy in his basement that doesn't know what he's talking about. These are CDC researched articles. A lot of stuff, you know, they say follow the science, but they really only want to follow the science as long as it goes down a direction that they want to see.
The narrative.
Right.
Right. And that's the problem with a lot of this, whether it's vaccines, whether it's mask mandates, whether it's natural immunity, is that they have a preconceived political agenda.
Yeah.
And anything, if you know anything about science, garbage in, garbage out. If you funnel certain types of information in and you don't funnel all of the information in, you're going to get a shaded result. And that's the problem with a lot of this. And what we see on the news is the culmination of common sense science, scientific methods, with either emotional or political type of a bent. And that's where the problem is. You can't have that. You got to divorce yourself of the politics, which will never happen, especially under the current administration. And you have to get out emotion. Emotion has no place in making scientific decisions and certainly public policy. Nobody knows, right, or rational. Nobody knows what's going on. We've been told so many times. 1 minute Fauci says masks don't work. Early on, he said that. He said, don't wear masks because you're going to be futzing around with the mask where it meets your face, and you're going to have your hands near your face, and you're going to reinfect it.
And then his emails came out.
His emails, right. And common sense. I have a study here from a research physiotherapist that one of their, if you have a pulmonology disease, like I do, and I've been through the same test, there's a test called the 6-minute walk. They put you on a treadmill, they put a mask over your face, and they have you walk. They don't get crazy, but just walk. And they measure the amount of oxygen, O2, going in and the amount of CO2 going out. And they can measure the amount of waste, CO2, in your blood plasma. And it skyrockets when you wear a mask. Okay, so you might, even if you make the argument that, well, it doesn't really help anything. Okay, it may not be helping spread the disease, but it's hurting me because I'm breathing my own waste back in again. So it's, you don't just make a medical decision based on one vector. It's not just contaminating other people. It's also, what am I contaminating myself with?
Right.
We've made, then came the hand sanitizer deal.
And health is a personal responsibility at the end of the day.
Sure it is.
You know?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, everybody has to be responsible for their own health.
Yeah.
Which I think is where this 6-foot distance came from, which is a whole other thing, because there's no scientific basis to that whatsoever either. This 6-foot thing, who came up with that? Some nitwit politician came up with it, and everybody stuck with it. I remember early on walking in a supermarket, and there's arrows going up one way and down the other way.
Yeah.
Who came up with that?
Yeah.
Like, where do these people dream this shit up?
Coronavirus only travels one way on
it's
even
one-way
and odd
virus.
numbered aisles.
And it only comes out after 10 p.m.
That's the other thing. I went to Costa Rica for Christmas, and at 10 o'clock, everybody had to be in. Why? What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
But it's just this stuff that somebody thinks up, and they're like, all right, we're just going to go with it. It's like they're just throwing Jell-O up against the wall and saying, which one sticks? And then they lose credibility with people, and then they wonder why people are losing their minds because nothing makes any sense.
Yeah.
If you can show me, and I realize early on things were a little bit hazy, but if you can show me in print or with a study, like a real study, like real scientists, that masks work or this particular type of a mask works, I'm down for it. I'm all about people's safety, but when you make this shit up as you go on, and then you're trying to indoctrinate 320 million people at the same time, stuff's going to go sideways.
Not even that, the whole world. I mean, the whole world plays off of us.
And
at this point.
as the U.S. goes the rest of the world. They just happen to be back behind us.
And unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, and for at least what they would have us believe anyway, at least 50% of the country is going the indoctrinated way that they're just spewing on mainstream media. And we said it last podcast. We should probably say it every single time to remind our listeners. What we want people to do is leave emotion out of science, decision making. What you got to do is find the facts, make decisions based on the facts, and not how you feel about the facts.
Yeah.
Because like we've said a couple times already today, way too much emotion is involved, and people are becoming psychologically attached to. Have you seen some of the videos? And this is not factual stuff. This is just videos of people interacting. Like a guy wearing 3 masks, and he's like his feet are on the mark, right? The 6 feet marks in front of cash registers. So he'll keep his feet on the mark, and then he'll lean real far forward to grab a straw or something from the cashier, because he's so psychologically attached to what he's seen Fauci say yesterday, because 4 days ago Fauci said something different, but yesterday, you know what I mean? And so
that's like the same thing Hunter said about the 2 girls in the bar last episode.
Yeah.
They put their mask on to walk 10 feet past nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where are you going? I'll say, who are you going to infect? The doorway on the walkout?
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. My only thing is, and I've said this from day one about the mask, if I can smell a fart, a virus is getting through my mask.
Without a doubt. And I got news for you.
You're going to
That
smell
virus
it.
is smaller than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the biggest things is that they, and when I say they, I mean the public authorities, have scared the living hell out of people.
Yeah.
You know, to the point that it doesn't scare me because I'm in the medical field. I know how to read research.
Right.
And it's just what I do for a living. Part of being healthy is getting sick from time to time. Now, granted, I don't want Ebola where I got blood coming out of my eyes, but this is the flu. Now, if you are part of a certain demographic and those comorbidities apply to you, yeah, you need to be more careful.
Right.
But it's not a death sentence.
And that's not something that you need, and you've said this a lot, Christian, that's not a way you need to dictate the actions of an entire country around a small demographic of people that do need to take caution. But like you just said, they need to take caution of the flu, of the common cold, of all kinds of things, pneumonia.
I was saying, per the CDC, and you'll probably disagree with this, that 545 kids have died from COVID. Probably in their system, not actually from. We can't take that small of a number of kids to dictate every single school across America and what we do in those schools. Kids have a 0.00074% chance of dying from COVID. That's per CDC numbers versus the 2010 census of 0 to 18.
Yeah. I mean, more kids die, way more kids die in car accidents.
Yep.
But we're not outlawing cars.
Right.
You know, now there are certain rules that come into place with car seats and seat belts and this and that, but they're proven. It's proven.
Yeah,
I mean, when
right.
I was a kid, I'm way older than you guys, but when I was a kid, they didn't even have seat belts. You used to sit in the back facing the other direction in my parents' station wagon. You know, but it's not so much a generation. It's been more than a generation progression where everybody's like a wimp. It's like everybody wants a guarantee. Everybody wants comfort. And that's not the way life is. You know, sometimes days suck. Sometimes you get sick and you feel really like a stool sample for the day. You know, there's been times when I've had a terrible flu or I've had terrible allergies. You know, then you know enough, or you should know enough. Stay home, because maybe it's not allergies. You know, maybe it's pneumonia, or maybe it's this or that. But it's almost like the population wants government to protect them. Government can't protect you.
That's what they want.
Government cannot be there. If something happens and somebody breaks in this room right now, the police might be here in 15 minutes, but what do I do in that 15 minutes? You know, you are responsible for you. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if everyone is responsible for themselves and exercises common sense, a lot of this stuff takes care of itself.
Yeah, the government never did it, hasn't done anything for me.
No, yeah, get
29 years I've been in this world.
Yeah,
What did
get
Reagan
away.
say? The 9 scariest words, or 7?
Yep.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
That's it.
Exactly. The government's job is to do the big stuff. Defend the country, which they can't even do that if you look at the border.
Yeah, right.
You know, and you think they're going to help us on an individual level or something like that. It's not going to happen. You know, just a common sense. You know, when we were kids, if you were sick, what was the one place your parents wouldn't let you go if you were sick?
School.
Your grandparents. Well, right, school or your grandparents.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're older. They're more frail. Okay. What do they do when this all started? People got sick. They sent them back to the nursing home. Like, just common sense. Forget COVID. Forget scientists. Forget CDCs.
Yeah.
You people are a bunch of dopes. Why would you send them back there?
Yeah.
You know, it's just common sense stuff like that. And when people look at it from a distance, now that we got a little bit of perspective, you wonder why they lose credibility.
Right.
You people don't have any brains. And now that the research is coming out and the science is coming out, they just conveniently don't look at it. You know, they slide it to the
They'll
side.
skirt around it.
No, it was skewed report. It was this. It was that. The stuff that I read is not skewed. It's all from medical journals, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet, epidemiology schools.
It's important to look at who's funding a study too, you know, and who's doing the study, like you just said. But sometimes, man, it's as simple as follow the money. And I'm not expecting every one of our listeners to go and dive into like, oh, where did every penny of this study come from? But like you said, garbage in, garbage out. And you can pad the stats in your favor. For example, the vaccines. But anyway, I think you were about to say something else.
Well, it's funny you say follow the money, because this goes off on a little bit of a different tangent. So we'll break it up with the COVID stuff here for a second, because this is a recent. I actually saw this 2 days ago, and I thought I was going to be able to break news to you guys, but it was on Fox News last night. Our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has really been putting the screws to parents that go to school board meetings. These parents are bringing up issues that they have with the way the school board is teaching the different curriculum, strong sexual stuff that has no business being in schools.
right.
That's stuff that parents teach kids, especially at this age level.
Absolutely.
3rd, 4th, 5th grade. What the hell? So
And it's not just like the birds and the bees.
Oh,
It's
hell no.
graphic, nasty
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Did you see the video? Sorry to interrupt. Did you see the video where the woman
That's what he's talking
got
about.
the book
Yeah.
and read it off?
Yeah.
It was
the mother.
The mother of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
of
read
an
it.
approved book for the homosexuality, and it was in detail
Yes.
It
about.
was like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, all right. So you all saw that. Then.
Yeah, so
You all
that's-
saw that
that's what I'm
clip.
talking about.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
So there's a big wave going across the country where the parents have had it with this. The parents are like, no.
Thank God. That's what we need.
That's right. It's like the mama bear type syndrome. Screw with me, it's fine. You screw with my kid, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's mostly moms that are standing up with this.
Yeah, I know.
So I think he's running for governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe. He used to be in with the Clintons, which tells you all you need to know right there. He was the one that literally on live TV said that, parents really have no business with what we teach the kids.
Right. Yeah.
What? Wait a minute. I pay my taxes and I'm paying your salary. You're teaching my child. And then they wonder why there's a huge flood of parents that are taking their kids out and putting them in either private school or homeschooling. So to combat this, because we live in a country, to get a little bit political, liberals cannot win in the arena of ideas. They will lose every single time. Liberals are intellectually dishonest. So the only way they can win is by their friends in the media slanting what gets out there. So if that's all you hear and you get your news from Facebook, you get your news from Instagram, you get your news from the left meaning liberal, before you know it, you repeat the same lie to people long enough and they start believing this crap.
Yeah.
So you get somebody like Garland, who's a flaming liberal, who now has weaponized the FBI and labeled these parents as domestic terrorists.
Yep.
So here's a fun little fact, and this is what just came out. Always follow the money. Dylan, you mentioned this before. Yep. So you've heard of CRT, critical race theory.
Yep.
And that's another bone
know
that
where
these
you're going
parents
with
are
this.
getting crazy about. Like, I don't want you teaching this stuff to my kids. You're indoctrinating. Teach my kids how to think.
Let's
Don't teach my
interject
kids
something
what-
real quick. Growing up, and you even less for you probably, but did you even see color in school growing up?
No.
I didn't.
We all three went to the same school. That was never an issue.
No, it never was.
Never.
Well, that's
even in
not
my
exactly
office.
the best point, but
When I have somebody come in the office, you know what I see?
Yeah.
A spine.
yeah, right,
give a
exactly.
So what color you are?
What's changed? At least us, we graduated. I'm 2010. When did you
12.
graduate? 12 and
16.
okay, youngin.
but
But I'm saying that what has happened in 5 to 10 years? A decade.
Well,
What exactly has changed? What's ramped up?
they're
in
pushing it down
a
your
decade?
throat. They want it to make a resurgence. See, yes, there's racist people in the country and the world. That's not an argument. However, systemic racism is a topic for discussion because it's divide and conquer is what it is. That's as simple as that.
So that's another one of the left's tactics is to always have some divisive argument out there.
yeah.
So whether it's mask, no mask, vaccinate, no vaccinate,
Yeah.
black, white, and if there's not something there, they will stir the shit pot until everybody's fighting.
Yeah.
Because it's when there's something going on that they can push their agenda forward.
It's obvious.
And that's what's
Yeah.
been for
Well, it's obvious to us, but
10 to 15 years.
Yeah, that's the problem,
you
honestly.
But
also-
go back into what.
So anyway, going back to our
Yeah, sorry.
our prestigious Attorney General. So then we find out that the Attorney General's daughter is married to a guy they met in Yale, I believe, and he is the co-owner of the marketing company that makes the CRT materials.
Follow the money.
No.
Yeah. And this isn't me saying this. I
my
mean,
gosh.
today, as of today, it's all over the internet.
Yep.
Tucker Carlson had it on his news, and I was like, "Damn you, Tucker! I thought I had something solid here," and he ran with it. But you follow the money.
Breaking news on American Sons podcast.
But here's the thing: if it was on the right,
Oh, yeah.
they would crucify this guy.
oh yeah.
And it's just there's two forms of justice in this country right now. It's the conservatives. Any little thing, they get hammered. The Democrats, nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. You're
Yeah,
racist.
exact-
You're
yes,
racist.
exactly.
There's nothing racist about it. This is the way it is. There is the connections, and here's the money. Hunter Biden selling $500,000 for a picture. That guy's Ray Charles could paint a picture better than this guy. And for you guys that are younger, Ray Charles was a blind singer.
Oh yeah.
So it's just the hypocrisy is crazy. So again, it goes to losing all credence with our leaders when you see the double standard.
It is.
Justice is blind? Yeah, right. Justice is not blind. Justice is, do you lean left or do you lean right?
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down
Here's
to.
what the problem is, and I think is that it's astounding that so many people on the left and their relatives like Hunter Biden aren't prosecuted for these blatantly obvious things that
They're
they've
not
done.
even investigated.
But yeah, or it's a BS investigation. Yeah, we investigated open closed case. Yeah, okay. However, like you said, people are scrutinized for things that are done in a conservative manner. But I think you're not having politicians on the right side of the aisle because I think most politicians nowadays are worthless. But it's because if I run you down because there is legitimacy to this accusation against you, we'll say a liberal politician, then that person's going to turn around and show what I did in the shadows. You know what I mean? So they're all under the table deals. It's all behind, there's so much going on.
Well, talking about getting the background, you talked about the domestic terrorist labeling of mothers.
What does that allow them to do?
Well, I was going to get to it. That down the road, that could be opening up a can of worms with the Patriot Act, looking into domestic terrorists, looking at texts, phone calls,
Anything.
anything
That's right.
under the Patriot Act.
So what they're trying to do now is get the FBI, because it's really not a federal issue. It's a more statutory issue. But they're trying to link up with local police department, sheriff's office, because the FBI is big, but they're not that big. Like they can't be in every single school board meeting. But all they have to do is just say, he said something, she said something. It's not even so much the evidence as it is the seriousness of the charge. Think about that for a minute. It doesn't matter how much evidence is against you. He accused me of something. It could be a one-on-one thing. And it just starts a huge nest and a big mud puddle, and then nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. Again, their thing is to divide. They're just, no, those mothers are rabble-rousers. They got nothing to do, and they need to make more cookies or this or that. No, they're seriously concerned about their kids' education, and they just are calling you on account. They just want to know, why are you teaching this? And what's your authority to teach this kind of sensitive subject when my kid doesn't know 2 + 2, but you're teaching them about how to put, condoms on a banana? Like,
yeah,
and it just, it's mind numbing because it all plays into their narrative, because the less educated the person is, the less the person knows how to critically think and use deductive reasoning, the easier it is for them to shape their little brains full of mush.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
And that's what it comes down to.
And now you got these kids that I think the psychological repercussions of what we're doing to kids, specifically with masks, are going to be profound down the line growing up. I mean, you're not learning for the very young children having to wear masks. You're not learning how to read people's facial expressions, social interactions, all kinds of messed up. And now we're talking about a demographic that is what we just spoke about, one of the least likely to have any serious effects of being
COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
And are they going to get
being
COVID
exposed.
at higher rates? Probably, because they're kids. Like I said last time, they're disgusting.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to tell you something else just to lighten the mood here a little bit that is an unintended consequence of the whole mask thing. Do you know how difficult it is to date when a woman's wearing a mask? She might look kind of hot, and then she takes it off, and you see her grill, and you're like, oh, honey, put that back on again. You're killing me. I'm just saying. That's one of the things that you have to deal with.
Yeah, right.
I've never come across that in my past year and a half worth of dating.
Yeah, if they got a snaggle
yeah,
tooth. Yeah, they got a snaggle tooth or something. You're like, oh, honey, put it back on again.
I haven't done that yet.
Well, I'll say, during the height of COVID, and when the masks were in Delaware, if you go into any gas station or anything, you had to wear a mask, per social norms. That time when I did wear a mask because I didn't know anything about it, when they took them off, it was weird to me. Like the social cues, and that's as an adult. So just reinforcing that.
When you're developed as a kid who's trying to read social or different winces or what did you mean by that?
Yeah,
and some of these kids, it was right up to their bottom of their eyes. You can't see anything.
Someone's going to end up getting punched in the face because they read someone's face.
Dude,
wrong.
I'm telling you,
exactly.
the repercussions are going to be devastating down the line.
No, they will be.
Yeah. So a little bit of a science because I said I was going to quote some stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff.
Now,
here.
dude, what you guys can't see is he has all these papers, articles in front of him. So I want you to dive in.
Man is prepared.
So yeah, and this is my first podcast. Imagine when I do this a couple of times.
Yeah, hey,
So-
but health, part one.
I'm gonna read just a couple of things because I don't want it to get monotonous. But May, and these are all recent studies. May 2020, published by the U.S. CDC. You know, the guys that were following the science, that found that face masks had no effect, neither as personal protective equipment nor as a source of infectious control. A Danish randomized control study with 6,000 participants, published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, November 2020. Again, this isn't somebody's basement. This is, the guys that know. Found, quote, no statistically significant effect of high-quality medical face mask. High quality, not the crap they wear in underwear.
Yeah,
over
not your
face.
gator,
Right.
your salt armor gator.
Of high-quality medical face mask against the SARS-CoV-2 infection in a community setting. No significant effect. Randomized controlled study of 8,000 participants. This is the Public Library of Science. Quote, did not seem to be effective against laboratory confined viral respiratory infections. European CDC. Like, we don't have enough of a screwed up bunch in the United States. We got one in Europe. This is February of 2021. Found no high quality evidence in favor of face masks and recommended their use only based on precautionary principle. So in other words, it makes you feel good. July 2020, review from the Oxford Center of Evidence-Based Medicine found that there's no evidence for the effectiveness of face masks against virus infection or transmission. And these are all sourced. I mean, I don't know how podcasts work. I don't know if they can put this stuff up on their site or whatever, but this is all stuff. I'm not just making this up. This is all here.
At the very least, we can definitely share these links on the social medias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
August 2021, 2 months ago, International Research Journal of Public Health found, quote, no association between mask mandates or use of and reduced COVID spread in U.S. states. July 2021, American Institute of Physics found that face masks reduced indoor aerosols by at most 12%.
Was that Maryland? Is that what you said?
American Institute of Physics reduced indoor aerosols by at most 12%, not enough to prevent infections. And this is my favorite one, 2015 study. Now, again, you say, okay, well, geez, that's 6 years ago. But viruses are viruses, then the science is the science.
Right.
The study in the British Medical Journal found that cloth masks were penetrated by 97% of viral particles and may increase infection risk by retaining moisture of repeated use. So not only is it not doing anything, it's affecting you because you're breathing your byproducts back into your system again.
Right. How much information is out there about the negative effects of these masks that we're keeping on our faces on the immune system?
None, because that doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
Now, there's 11 on this sheet because I didn't want to get carried away and read them. There's over 100 studies.
Yeah.
And you know where a majority of them are coming from? Outside the U.S., at least from what you just read.
Yeah. I mean, there's some CDC stuff there, but as soon as it comes out, they kick that to the curb. Mm-hmm. It's like grading your own test paper, and you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
So it doesn't fit
censor
the narrative.
Censor it, label it misinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, well, it was skewed, or this or that or the other thing. No, it just didn't give you the result that you were anticipating.
It goes against their narrative.
Right.
Because here's the thing, like the governors, like the government itself, federal, state levels, they have already dug their grave. They can't go out. They can't go backwards from. They look like fools.
Well, that's what we were talking about before you got here about the ego. And like you said, if you're wrong, instead of correcting yourself, they just double down on being wrong.
Yeah.
There's a snowball coming, and it's building, and it's going to hit.
The first time I dealt with something like this is when I did research back when I was in graduate school, because chiropractic was invented back in 1895, right around the same time X-ray was. But we didn't have a lot of technology. We had X-ray, we didn't have motion X-ray. And that's where my device came in, because we were able to actually see the dynamic motion of the joints and see how they move, how they misalign, and more importantly, how to get them back in place. So old school chiropractic was very crude. as any science is when it first comes out. And you got these old timers that were like, nope, this is the way it's always been. This is the way it's always going to be. Then you start coming out with science. Don't take my word for it. You can see it on the x-ray machine.
Right.
And they dug their heels in. They did not want change. They didn't care what. But eventually, technology takes over.
Yep.
And that's what's going to happen here. There's going to be a wave of people like these guys that are digging into the internet, that are digging into quality websites, that are totally objective. They don't care if it fits their narrative or not. The science is the science. And it's eventually going to take over. At some point, the truth is going to come out. They can only hide it for so long. It may come out in the venue of the European CDC or the Israeli study, which I'm going to get to here in a little bit.
Right.
But it's going to come out. You can't hide it forever. You can't keep sweeping stuff under the rug because the dust bunnies are going to come out of the other side of the rug. And people don't want to die.
I hate it when people, see or encounter people like the four of us sitting here and they're like, but you just don't want to agree. But let me pose this. How much easier would our lives be if we just went along with this crap? Especially in today's day.
Without a doubt.
It would be so much easier. But like you said, we're doing our best to be objective and figure out the truth. I'm not just going to do something because somebody just spoon feeds me information or tells me to do it. I want to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's true, whatever. And so it's actually we're making our lives even more inconvenient than they already are by doing what we're doing. And I just want to throw that in there because so many people think, they just want to be a cog in the wheel. But
No.
But generally, conservatives have a tendency to take, to do the research, and to make the easiest thing in life is to be a liberal.
oh yeah,
Because you just go along to get along, and you don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers, and you don't really care about the science. You're more worried about, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't really care what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
If there's science behind it, I have no problem
Right.
doing this, doing that, doing the other thing. But give me a legitimate reason.
sure.
That's all I'm asking. Here's another study, and this one, it's kind of off the beaten path with masks, but it has to do with mandates. And this comes from Yale University, Cold Spring Harbor. So here's the result. I just give you the synopsis. Case growth was not significantly different between mandate and non-mandate states at low or high transmission rates, and surges were equivocal. So again, what that means, mask mandates did not slow COVID-19 spreads. Didn't matter if you were in a mandated state that you had to wear a face diaper all the time, or if you were in a state that you could do whatever you wanted to do.
Right.
It had equivocal means it doesn't make a difference one way or the other. So where does the governor get off telling me I should wear a mask or not wear a mask?
Yep.
If I want to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. And if I have a business and I don't wear a mask and you don't feel safe, then go to somebody else's business.
Yeah.
Let the market decide. That's what this world is. That's what this country is founded on, is capitalism.
Wasn't Texas one of the first states to fully lift their mask mandate?
Florida, I think, was one of the first ones.
Okay, Florida and Texas,
Probably, yeah,
I
both
believe,
of
were
them.
the
Yeah,
first two. So, but I'm getting to a point here, regardless of what state it was. Fauci and the administration was like, it's going to be a disaster. They're going to see an
They
overwhelming
hated on
COVID
them
number."
so bad.
I was going to recap because
Dude,
if you
they
look back on
hammered
on, the
on
media,
those people, but what
Right.
happened? What happened? They actually their numbers, assuming that we're trusting all these numbers anyway, because like you said, if there's one particle of COVID that's not even enough to make you sick, they still call it a COVID case.
Right.
But anyway, those reported cases continually declined. Because what were they doing, Dr. B? They were building natural immunity.
Building herd immunity.
Yep.
And they weren't breathing that crap back into their system.
Right.
Now, granted, you can't look at this too simplistically, because there's a lot of different variables. There's a huge variable of having people in a state like Florida or a state like Texas versus in Maine.
Right.
When colder weather's starting to come like it is now,
Yeah.
people are going to be in more closed environments. So I don't care what you have, you're going to be more infectious, whatever the disease is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the mechanism of the environment that you're in. You're not going to get as much vitamin D.
Yep.
You're probably not going to get as much exercise because it's getting dark earlier. It's a complicated situation,
Yeah.
but they try to, again, shade it to their narrative.
Yep.
Oh, no, it's
Yep.
because of this. No, it's not because of that. There are multiple reasons, but you have to have an open mind, and you have to be able to, again, get back to education.
Yeah.
You have to be able to deductively reason and be able to look at different influences as to why the numbers are going up or going down. They will likely spike up here shortly because it's
Flu season.
flu season.
And a mask is not the only variable in your health.
That's right. Here's a thought. Why don't you eat healthy? Have a salad every now and then instead of eating Twinkies. Get your spine checked. Do a little bit of exercise. But again, we live in a country where everybody wants a quick fix.
Yeah.
Give me a pill. Give me a surgery. Give me this. Give me that. But I still don't want to eat right. I still don't want to exercise. I don't want to do this. I don't. No, it's a whole health type of a picture. I can only do so much for you as a helper on the outside. At some point, it's about personal responsibility.
Yes.
And they're pushing that too. So now it's, as you're saying, you want the quick fix. Quick fix. Hey, get the jab, and you can be set free.
Well, it's not just a quick fix now. Now it's a convenience thing now, because
they've changed
now
it
you're
to-
not going to be inconvenienced anymore.
That's the other thing with this whole thing. If you remember, way back when, even when Trump was in, it was 15 days to slow the curve.
Yeah.
They keep moving the goalpost because now
What have I said so many times?
now the left sees it. What's one of the left's big mantras? Don't ever let a crisis go, unused. So they'll use this, and they see how it scares the living hell out of people. So instead of doing it for the population's better good and doing whatever it is that needs to be done, they see it as a way to strike fear in people and a way to push their agenda.
Yeah. And how
And
much
it's that
money has
simple.
been made since it was what, March
And it'll keep being
2020?
made because now
We won't
what do
talk
you
about
know?
money.
Viruses do what viruses do. They mutate.
Yes.
Oh, we got a booster for that.
But
We got a booster for
especially
this.
respiratory viruses like we talked about,
Absolutely.
right?
It's like a Windows virus. They have a patch for this. They have a patch for that. They have a patch for this. But there's no side effects other than it screwing up the stuff that actually worked on your computer. But this is the health. And there's people say, well, you're anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. My kids were vaccinated when they were born. If I step on a rusty nail, I'm going to get a tetanus shot.
Right.
Okay. But these are vaccines that have been tried and tested for many, 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 many years. And the same professionals, healthcare professionals that say, well, it's good. We tested it, will not let you take a very benign medication like Plaquenil, hydroxychloroquine, or ivermectin that's
Yeah.
been around since the 1950s
Yeah.
that costs 50
Prescribed to
cents a pill
millions of people,
with,
and
with
it's one of
virtually
noble.
no side effects.
Yes.
I would be willing to sign the ADA against medical advice form. Just give me the pill. Try to find one. Try to find ivermectin. You ain't going to find it. You may find a doctor that'll write you a script for it, but it's not in any of the pharmacies.
So I want to just ask you a question. I know the obvious answer to this, but I'm a bigger guy, but I see the hypocritical side of this, where we're having a pandemic, air quotes, because you can't see me, but rather than staying inside, shouldn't you be out exercising, getting vitamin D, eating right? Not
Yeah, but that all requires personal responsibility.
right. So that was the okay.
So the
Yeah,
lazy
that's
the
answer
lazy
I was looking
person's thing is I'm not going to change anything about my lifestyle. I see it all the time in my office. People come in, their backs are blown out, the inside of their knees are killing them, they got heel spurs, and they're way overweight, they don't exercise, and they eat at Hardee's every day. Like I can't build a Cadillac out of a Pinto. You're giving me nothing to work with here. Like I can put you back together again, but I can't super glue joints together. I can't. Your body, it's philosophically in health, it's called limitations of matter. Okay, I can jump off of this chair and I'll be perfectly fine. If I go out of your roof and I jump off, I'm going to splat. Okay, my bones can only support so much weight. My ligaments can only support so much weight. So do something that I can't do for you.
Right.
Work on reducing your weight. Work on increasing your cardiovascular output. Work on a better diet. Again, going back to the beginning of this conversation, the one thing you cannot do anything about is your genetics. That's it. What you got is what you got. So if you got shitty genetics, you really got to bone up on the other stuff. If you have decent genetics, you should still do what you can do for your own personal health. But it's not to say that some people shouldn't get the vaccine. I think there's a demographic that maybe should consider it. But if you decide to do it or you decide not to do it, it's a personal choice. And it's up to you, just like if you decide to exercise or eat a good meal, it's up to you to do the research and to filter through all the crap out there.
Yes.
And to make an educated decision. You may change your mind. Maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, there'll be more studies out there. There'll be more information. You'll be like, you know what? It's the thing for me. I'm going to do it.
That's the whole thing. It's a personal choice, and the fact that we're being mandated and coerced to either get vaccinated or lose your job.
If you think about the mechanism of how vaccines work, a vaccinated person, if it truly does work, an unvaccinated person is no danger to you. And I'll give you an easy way to explain that.
Thank you.
Correct.
I'm walking down the street with Hunter, and it's raining. And he has an umbrella. He's not getting wet. But he's pissed off because I don't have an umbrella, and I'm getting wet. So he got vaccinated, so he's sheltered from the vaccine. The vaccine is the raindrops. And I may be getting sick, I may not be getting sick. What does he care? It's no skin off his nose. But that's the short story of how vaccines work. Now, you can make a whole nother story about the breakthrough infections because it does decrease your immunity. I happen to believe in evolution and the fact that my immune system has evolved over thousands and thousands of years to make it much more effective than something that lab rats built in 6 months in a lab.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. That's okay. It's my body. It's funny how it can be your body and your choice when it comes to abortion.
Yeah.
But when it's my body, my choice when it comes to injecting a chemical in it, no. That's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam has to tell you.
Right.
So again, the hypocrisy is just rampant.
So if the vaccine, so if you get the vaccine but I don't, you should be protected from the vaccine. But it's been proven that it doesn't completely protect you.
Exactly.
So is it about the health or is it about the money?
It's about the money, and it's about, I think, part of it, and I'm not a conspiracy person, but it just turns out that a lot of these conspiracies are starting to come through.
6 months.
6 months, yeah.
It's about power. And it's like these people can turn the screws, whether it's a governor or whether it's even local officials. They can turn the screws and say, no, you are going to wear a mask, or you're going to close your business, or we're going to take your alcohol license, or we're going to do something to screw with you. It's not about the science. My thing, again, is it's capitalism. If I want to wear a mask in my office, I'll wear a mask. If you want to wear one when you come in, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, don't wear one. And if you don't like what I do in my office, then don't. If I was the type of doctor that adjusted you in a certain way that you didn't like, that I was hurting you, I won't expect you to keep coming back. Go to the guy down the street. It's about individual choice. Don't mandate me to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
So, it's just the whole vaccine thing has gotten so out of hand because there's so much political power and capital tied up into it.
Absolutely.
And then the mother's milk of politics, money. Then you get these big drug companies, Pfizer, that has so much money wrapped up in it. And that now they see an avenue not only to get one shot, now you have to get 2 shots 45 days later.
And then
now there's the
boosters.
Delta variant. Now there's this. Guess what, folks? This is never going to stop.
It's never going to end.
It's never going to end. It's always going to be this and that and the other thing until people have finally had it. The problem is that the cure is becoming worse than the disease. And it's starting to affect
Yes.
people in ways that maybe the guy never had any idea that he had a particular problem.
Right.
He gets the
I was about to
injection
get in-
and
I
he
was gonna
starts
ask.
getting swelling around the heart
Yep.
because he's maybe on a medication because these tests were pushed through so quickly. They didn't have a chance to test.
Or you had a heart
for if
condition
you're
you
on
didn't
this.
even know you were about?
That's right. I have patients all the time that come in. Maybe they come in for low back. This happens all the time with senior citizens. Come in with low back pain, do 2 x-rays, and find out that they have a calcified abdominal aorta.
Oh,
They had no idea that they had hardening of the arteries, which in and of itself isn't the end of the world. It's more the size of it. But I can at least put them on notice to say, hey, this thing is this size right now, and it's not the end of the world, but it's something every year you should get this looked at. Because if it grows and it bursts, you're dead before you hit the floor.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I was able to see that. They weren't clinically, you don't get pain from that, but at least I was able to put that on their radar screen. Stuff like this happens, you get the injection. Next thing you know, you have myocarditis, inflammation around the heart. You get, who knows what you can get.
I want to say something real quick. Just there's so many things to be said, but if you had a career criminal, right? Someone who has been in and out of prison for stealing or something, let's just say. And now this person needs to live with you. If you're a good dude, or let's just say you're an awesome person, you're very forgiving, you're open-minded, always the second chance giver. What is any reasonable person going to do if they got to put up a career criminal in their house? You're going to be skeptical. You might lock up some of your most prized possessions, and it's nothing against this guy. It's just you're doing your due diligence too, right? By being a little skeptical. Pfizer is one of the biggest freaking career criminals out there, and no one's skeptical. No one's wondering why that they've paid out some of the biggest lawsuits in human history. It's just mind-boggling.
Or
to
they're
me.
making billions and
There's
billions of dollars.
skepticism,
Billions.
but there's also a lot of investors. I can't tell you how many people I know that have money that are heavily invested with Pfizer.
You want to know how many people in Congress are invested in Pfizer?
Yeah. Why do you think you're getting a kickback?
It's
Yeah.
always follow the money. It's always
Always.
follow the money. I don't care what it is.
Well, let me
And,
bring this. I'm going to go off on the far right-hand swerve here. Larry Hogan, right when it came out, do you remember what he did? He ordered take that back, $9 million he spent with South Korea to get these test kits. He had them flown in. As soon as they got here, he's like, oh, we're the first ones around to have the test kits, yada, yada, yada. Look at me, beat my chest, make me look good in front of everybody. And then what happens? Oh, wait. The test kits didn't have all the parts, or they were faulty test kits. So he took $9 million of the taxpayer money, spent them without what...
Well, that's what he said he did with that money.
Well, that's what he said, exactly. But he sent $9 million from a foreign country. We got them in. They were faulty. Then he has spent another $2 million, so $11 million now in total, to get the correct parts to make those kits work.
And if you live in Maryland, you had absolutely no say.
No, we had no say
With
at
your
all.
money.
No. That's the biggest fraud in it at all. And I would bet you right now that there's a kickback somewhere because of his wife's connections. With
Just
South
like
Korea.
with the Attorney General.
I wouldn't be
Just
surprised.
like the Attorney
my
General.
my daughter just happens to be married to the guy that markets the CRT. No, there's no coincidence.
Yeah.
Everything's connected. You just haven't dug deep enough. And again, I'm not a conspiracy person, but I've been on this planet long enough to know that generally, if it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's
I was
a duck.
just going to
Unless Fauci says it's a cat, and then it's a cat.
yeah, because he says so.
Yeah. But like I said, it's obvious stuff I go after. Common sense stuff is like, okay, his wife's South Korean. Great. Why get test kits from South Korea? Okay, she could speak the language. All right, I get that. But, like, we had enough stockpile here, according to President Trump at the time, and he even slammed the Maryland governor. He said, why is he spending money overseas? We have test kits here already. So, talk about a kickback somewhere. I bet you there's a big fat check with her name on it.
Yeah.
But it's just me being an opinionated guess here.
You're going to get us called racist again
I
for that
know
one.
it.
So getting back to the mandate. thing,
Sorry.
one thing I really
Go back to that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. I'm like, Larry Hogan, screw you.
The mandate thing, the one thing that makes me crazy is, and you never hear this. In fact, Fauci the other day was questioned about it. And he sat back in his chair and he says, I never thought about this, was natural immunity. I had COVID. Okay, now early on they said that you only have antibodies for 60 to 90 days. Well, that's a load of crap because I've gotten tested 6 times for the antibodies on my own dime. And every time, with the exception of one time, my titer score was higher. Which means, layman's terms, I'm more resistant to COVID now than I was right after I got it. Now, is that because my body is building more antibodies because I was exposed, or is it because I don't know why? All I know is my body works.
Yeah.
And it's doing what it's supposed to do. So when you have a person that has natural immunity, they're protected. In fact, there's an Israeli study that came out recently, and again, I have the peer-reviewed stuff here. Israeli study, fully vaxxed are 27 times, not 27%, 27 times more likely to get COVID than people with natural immunity. So if anything, they should be putting research, and I'm not a bioengineer, but if anything, they should find a way to engineer antibodies or whatever the substance is that mimics what's in my system after having COVID and successfully fought it, than some artificial spike protein that's causing all these other problems.
Yeah.
So it's, but there's probably not money in it. And that's why it's not being looked at.
Yeah.
In fact, there's not money in it because you cannot patent a human gene or human cells. It has to be artificially processed. If it's artificially processed, you can patent it. And that's why they didn't go down that direction.
Right.
But again, it's a study. And just for reference, Israel is the most vaccinated country on the planet.
Was it 80% or higher?
That have had 2 vaccinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the population has been vaccinated or had the 3rd booster, and they're on their way to introducing the 4th booster.
Yeah,
like
Israel
at what
revoked.
point? What point do you be like, you know what? Maybe we should think about this differently because we're also the highest infected.
It's mind-boggling to me.
When does that click?
Yeah.
But again, it's an emotional decision. So
Yes.
at some point, you have to have a heart-to-heart in your own head and be like, you know what? All of this stuff that I've been thinking and that I've been told is wrong. And I need to just reevaluate it. Maybe not all of it is wrong, but I need to reevaluate it and say, you know what, forget the emotional decision, forget the feel-good stuff. I need to look at the facts. And what are the facts? The facts are all around me. People I know are dying. People I know are getting vaccinated. They're having other issues.
Yep.
Something's not right. Put the brakes on it. Let's pump the brakes and look at this.
I heard 3 news stories of people having severe adverse reactions to vaccines today that are in my own personal circle. But anyways, it's so surprising. I guess, so growing up as a kid, and probably because I'm stubborn as all get out, but I had so many moments when I was young of being like, I would do something and be like, I probably shouldn't do that again. Or I'd be about to do something as I'd get a little older and a little smarter and be like, this might not be a good idea. When is that light bulb going to click on in this context? For people like you said, oh, it's 3rd booster shot. Oh, it's 4th booster shot. When is somebody going to be like, well, what the frick, man? I've got 3 shots now. You know,
You talk about people who are much older than us,
well, right. So
who have lived through other pandemics.
Yeah. But it's a really good point bringing up Israel, because they're the most relevant to this context, to this topic in the world right now, because they're so heavily vaxxed. And it's obviously a political thing in some regards, because Israel just revoked their vaccine passports for people with only 2 shots. So it's like, you got to now. Here's the thing, everybody. A lot of people I know that, oh, I'm going to get the vaccine. I don't really want it, but I'm going to get it for work. Okay, that's okay. If that's your true decision, you just told me it's not because you didn't want it, but that's a personal decision. However,
That's a convenience decision.
it's convenience. But it's not going to end there, friend, because then your job is going to say, well, we're mandating the booster now, and then it's going to be the next booster and the next. When's it going to end? Like we've already said, it's not going to end.
It's going to end when there's no more financial incentive. That's when it's going to end. Mm-hmm. But to get back to something both of you guys said about it, older people. I see this in my practice all the time, especially being a chiropractor. A lot of people have either had a bad experience or know somebody that's had a bad experience. So they come in with a preconceived idea of what it is I do.
Right.
Kids, no. Kids come in, kids are the easiest to take care of.
Yeah.
They have no emotional, they haven't been brainwashed yet, or they don't really know anything one way or the other.
They don't have a psychological attachment to what
Right.
you probably
When
are.
you get a kid, the kid is like, my neck hurts, I've heard it, sliding into second base or this or that. Even infants, I see tons of infants that the kid's colic, the mother's crying because she can't sleep, the kid's screaming his head off, they don't know what's the matter with them, and the OB sends the kid in to me. And one adjustment, not always, but more often than not, especially with a young kid, one time, and you fix that kid, and instantly, I see it all the time. They smile a little bit, they slobber, and they fall right to sleep because they're exhausted. But something's way out of whack. But they haven't been programmed yet. So the older you get, I think you're a product of your environment, and your decisions become more emotional.
That's a really good.
And you're more invested into. You may be not even a political person, but you have a slant.
Oh yeah.
And
the word you just said is really important. I think it's a key word: programmed.
Yes.
And whether we know it or not, we're all programmed some way or another. Like you said, everyone's slanted a little bit.
And it may not be a notorious programming, but you're programmed. I could tell you how you're programmed based upon the kind of shows you watch on TV, the kind of music you listen to.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it good or bad, but it is.
Right.
And if you're listening to garbage again and again and again and again, that's what you're going to start to believe. Mm-hmm. You may not know any better. And maybe by the time you do know better, you can't do anything about it because you've lived your life and you have a circle of friends that believe a certain thing. I've had tons of people that have told me, I just got vaccinated because it's going to make things easier and all of my friends are vaccinated.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
So how many times did you hear this as a kid? Well, if Joey jumped off of a bridge, would you jump off a bridge?
Yeah,
with him?
right. My mom still says that to me.
It's the same. It's the same thing. It's just it's a little bit more complicated, but it's the same mechanism of thought.
Well, how many businesses, employers have never mandated the flu shot, but are suddenly mandating the COVID vaccine?
I was just on the phone reading that while it went off about the employers forcing the vaccines on that, trying to see. They're saying majority of the employers are going with that now.
And the flu shot has been out since the 30s.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
So here's another fun fact, and this I didn't have a chance to print this out today, but when Biden came out and said that employers that have employees 100 or over,
Yep.
that's not a law. That was a
Yeah.
press release. That's not statutory law. Not yet, not unless he just signed it, an hour ago. But again, they throw that out there like they're whipping a pile of crap against the wall to see if it sticks. And how much pushback is it?
Oh, yeah.
They're measuring it. And then is it a lot of pushback initially? And then all the sheep kind of calm back down again? Or is it like the mothers at the school board meetings that are like, no, and hell no, you're not going to get away with this.
Yes.
And then they'll go a different direction.
That's what it needs to be.
Well, that's what that congressman just released that legislation or attempted to release it about sterilizing men.
Yeah.
And they got
You saw
so
that?
much pushback.
You saw it?
that, yeah.
They got so much pushback
which
they
is
came out and
hilarious
said they were
because
joking.
which is hilarious because it was from my home state, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Do you know who the Secretary of Health was in Pennsylvania through this whole COVID thing?
No.
Rachel Levine. Google it. I'm going to say Google her or Google him because he doesn't even know what she is. But you have somebody that doesn't know if they sit or stand when they pee, and they're telling me how to make my own health decisions? Go screw yourself. And now she is a deputy director in the health department, Health and Human Services. What? Are you kidding me? It's crazy. Like the people that think that they have the moral or the educational authority to tell me if I should get an injection. No, you need to figure out what you are and get back to me. So if you haven't seen
Agreed.
it, he, she, shim, trust me, Google it. Rachel Levine.
All right.
Good God.
That's my Halloween costume.
I
this
want to
year.
get into Project Veritas.
Oh yeah. Let's hit on that.
If nobody's seen this yet, go on our Facebook page. This is going to release Tuesday, so you might have to go back a few posts. But I posted every part of this 5-part series so far of what Project Veritas is putting out, and it is extremely interesting. You have Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson scientists saying you don't need this vaccine. There's FDA employees telling this journalist that we should use blow darts to put the vaccine into people who haven't had it yet. It's crazy, and I can't even believe it's real. But you
So
have part
here's a
5
direct
there.
here's a direct quote from Vanessa Gelman. She's Pfizer's senior director of world research. Quote, "From the perspective of corporate affairs, we want to avoid having the information on fetal cells floating out there. The risk of communicating this right now outweighs the potential benefit we could see, particularly with general members of the public who may take this information and use it in ways that we don't want out there." So in other words, it's not about the science of this is what we were using and this is the scientific method of how we got this product that we're going to jab into your skin. It's about just tell them what fits our narrative. Don't give them the whole picture. You can't make an educated decision about anything. I don't care if it's you're buying a new car if you don't have all the information.
And what is that directly related to that we've referenced multiple times? The Nuremberg codes directing all of humanity with making medical decisions. If you don't have all the information, you can't make an accurate decision. You can't be coerced. It's a long list.
Well, a bigger part this plays in is the religious exemption.
Exactly. They want to diffuse the religious exemption before it ever comes out.
Yeah.
So if you claim religious exemption that number one, you're pro-life, or number two, certainly you don't want any part of an aborted fetus in an injection, that's your religious exemption. Now, whether you're just saying that as a means to not get the injection or you seriously believe that is irrelevant. They're not going to give you that ammo. They're going to put that underneath, the Nuremberg Code. Yeah, it sounds good. And that may get some traction at some point, but this will get traction statutorily in every single state immediately.
And these were emails. This
Yeah,
wasn't
it's not
just
somebody
out
saying
of thin
it.
air.
It's in writing. I have the emails here.
Yeah, they show the emails in the video.
I just brought up the Nuremberg codes because it's supposed to be like essentially global law, I realize it may not gain traction with the public, but that's just why it's important.
Yeah. I mean, but again, this is something else that gets me is you always hear, and I've heard this for so long, oh, well, that's not constitutional. Well, this isn't constitutional. Well, yeah, everybody says that, but everybody does it.
Yes.
If it never has any teeth and nobody goes after anybody, and that's like saying the stop sign down the road, nobody ever stops at it.
That's because the judges don't want the backlash.
Exactly.
The judges are scared.
Exactly. But at some point, something's got to get done. So whether you're
That's what this show is all
the
about.
mom Yeah, that's whether you're the mom at the school board meeting or you're these three guys and invite me in to have a talk. At some point, at some level, you have to get involved. If not for yourself, for your family.
Yes.
And last
Couldn't agree more.
podcast, last episode, I was talking about that too. I said, change it. If you don't like something, go out and change it. Run for that office. Run for that seat, that leadership position. If you don't like what's going on, run for it yourself.
Yeah.
You make the change.
Speak up. Others
That's right.
will stand up. There's so many people that are craving this information. We've talked about it before. And the hopes of this show is that we encourage more people to be willing to stand up and encourage others to stand up. It's going to be a domino effect, and it's coming.
At the very least, just say something. Share something on your Facebook.
Yeah.
It might sound stupid, and 15 of your 1,500 friends might look at you and give you the finger, but who
You don't
cares?
know how many of those friends that think the same thing.
Exactly.
But they don't have the guts to say it.
Exactly.
And then they're like, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. You know what? I was thinking the same thing. And before
Exactly.
you know it, everybody was thinking the same thing, but nobody had the guts to open their mouth and say it. You may not be 100% correct in everything. This is a process. You work your way through stuff.
Yes.
But when you start realizing that, you first look at this stuff, you think to yourself, I must be crazy. Am I the only one that thinks this? And then you have a conversation with a close friend, like Dylan bounced some stuff off of me, and I'm like, oh, absolutely, this is what I think. And then he talks to Hunter, and then this person, and that person, and before you know it, you're like, we're not all rocket scientists. We're all thinking the same thing because we can critically think.
Right.
And we could deductively reason, and we can research. There's some really good websites out there. At least they were until they're closed down. So it's up to you to do the research and to look into stuff.
Absolutely. Awesome.
You got anything else? You got more research there you want to throw out there?
Well, the UK government, their public health system of England, September 2021, vast majority of Delta variant deaths are vaccinated people, not unvaccinated people. I don't know if there's a percentage here.
It looks like you got a table in the back there.
Oh, yeah, but I don't have my glasses. I can't read that. The BBC, British Broadcasting Company, 2 in 3 confirmed COVID-19 cases in the UK are among the vaccinated. 87% of hospitalizations are among the vaxxed. This is October 7th in Vermont, and this is August 6th. October 6th, Vaccinated in Vermont. 75% of September COVID deaths were vaccinated people. Vermont Health Department. Again,
That's the whole
documented.
state. That's the whole state of Vermont.
Yeah. 75% of September COVID deaths were vaccinated people.
Wow.
And that's now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 1 month ago.
I believe it. I do.
Yeah. Nearly 90% of young people in the UK already have antibodies for COVID-19, but yet they don't take that into effect, and they want to jab these kids. And there's even less studies on kids. We know that kids are much less likely to get COVID.
Right.
There are virtually no studies on the kids, but yet they want to mandate kids Pfizer just 2 days ago. Petition the FDA to have kids 5 to 11 vaccinated.
5 to 11. I saw the same thing, and this is what ticks me off: is people can say what they want. Oh, these vaccines are safe. They've been researched. They've been studied. First off, there hasn't been enough research and studies done on it. What about the animal trials? But more importantly, there's no long-term studies.
No.
No one on this planet knows what it's going to do to people in general 2, 5, 20 years from now. But what could be even worse, what's it going to do to women? Because we talked about the spike proteins earlier briefly. I've got graphs that can show you this intermuscular delivered vaccine does not stay in your arm like some people would have you believe. It's in your entire system less than 24 hours after the vaccine. And not only that, every organ in the body has, according to these graphs, spike proteins in them. But this is what scared me the most, especially with having a family now. The 2 organs that retain spike proteins, the heaviest, it doesn't matter, it was the less important one. The more important one was the ovaries. It was the spleen. But the ovaries. What? I mean, do we not care? Do we not care about what this could do in the future to women? Reproductive systems? I mean, this could have a catastrophic effect, and the only reason that it's important is because we don't have a freaking clue. No one knows.
The reason it's the most 2 organs is the spleen filters your blood. So all your blood passes through that. And your ovaries, for a woman, they produce an egg every single month. one ovary this month, one ovary that month. So it's a very rich supply. There's a lot of blood flow through there.
Right.
But we were talking right before we started recording here about, I guess Dylan knew somebody that the lady said, well, when you get the injection in your arm, it stays there. Well, that doesn't even make any sense. But the way to counter that is if you know somebody that has anaphylactic shock, let's say they get bit by a bee and they have to carry an EpiPen with them. Well, that right there disproves their point. If they get bit and that venom goes into their system, or a rattlesnake or a scorpion, you need that EpiPen because that goes right to your nervous system and starts shutting things down. So clearly it doesn't stay in one area. It may be a higher concentration there for half an hour, but over time, that's global. That goes through your entire system. It doesn't stay just in your arm.
And when you jab that epi into yourself,
It goes everywhere.
it doesn't just stay in your thigh.
Right. It goes everywhere. It's not like you need to stick it in your throat where the problem is. You stick it in your arm and it goes everywhere. So a lot of these people, again, they are just simply talking out of ignorance. They have no idea. And it's like the more you show them facts, the more they really grasp for straws and say stupid stuff like,
'Cause
no,
they
it stays
drank
in
the
your arm.
Kool-Aid.
Because they have no idea. They cannot critically think. They're so invested in thinking down this one particular rabbit hole that their head would explode if they ever thought about anything else.
Well, I also think a lot of people, when they get the vaccine, they want to make themselves think that it was the safest thing they could have done.
Oh, yeah.
Sure they do.
So they're going to spew that kind of stuff.
They made a life choice, and now everything after that was the best decision I ever made.
Right.
And when they hear a story about somebody that's getting sick, they're like, aha, see, if you'd have got the vaccine. But yet they'll hear somebody that got the vaccine
Almost a million
and then
people
got
now.
COVID again, and they're like, no, it must have just been the regular flu, or maybe it's a different variant. Yeah,
Sure.
Okay.
Well, it's like every week, it's like once a week, you'll see it on the news where they'll say this person that said you don't need the vaccine with anti-vaxxer dies of COVID.
Again,
That's straight propaganda.
It's garbage in, garbage out. If you know anything about statistics, you can easily have the outcome come a certain way by putting certain type of information in.
Right.
Well, a little story that I got through the week here. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Megan. She texted me the other day. She's like, hey, something for the podcast. She's like, real world experience here. She said, my best friend's stepdaughter got the jab. She has been into 3 different hospitals in the last week with seizure-like reactions, and they cannot tell her why or what's going on.
And a lot of these places won't even entertain the idea that it could be an adverse
That's the
reaction
thing.
to the vaccine.
She's never had anything prior to. She's been a healthy girl. I don't know the age, but she's been healthy prior to the jab. After the jab, it's been seizure-like reactions. They've been in 3 different hospitals, and they ended up putting her on heavy anxiety medicine.
Yeah,
That's what
we
they
talked
said.
about a similar case like that.
I had a buddy 3 weeks ago. He called me, and he's a pilot on a commercial airline that I'm not going to name. But he called me up. He's like, Hunter, you won't believe this. So what's up? He's like, I just had a medical emergency. We had to land, and one of my passengers was having a seizure. I said, really? I said, that's unfortunate. He said, yeah, but here's the thing. She was saying that she had just got the jab, the vaccine, and 2 of her family members prior to her had also had the same exact reaction after they got their vaccine within a week. Everybody, all 3 of those family members had seizure-like reactions within a week after getting the jab.
So why would you get it?
Yeah,
Because they likely didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't relate it back to that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's to the point I'm thinking about, is it genetics, as you were saying? Some people get it. Some people get COVID worse than other people do. Obviously, you were talking about earlier.
and a lot of people don't
What
know
kind of
the
health?
underlying issues that they may have, especially young people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What kind of health you're in. I mean, genetics. But you said you can't change genetics. Genetics is what we're stuck with.
So it became apparent early on in the medical community that a lot of these secondary symptoms came up after people got injected. So again, we talked about moving the goalpost. The FDA said, we're not going to consider you fully vaccinated until after you get 2 weeks after you get your second
2
vaccination.
weeks, right? Yep, 14 days.
And
we read
again,
the same
we
thing.
talked about statistics. We talked about garbage in, garbage out. So by saying you're not vaccinated until 2 weeks after your second injection, if you have seizure or you have myocarditis or you miscarriage a baby, they don't consider you vaccinated.
Unbelievable.
So again, it's a way to change the information that's coming out.
Yep.
Now, here's something here to fire everybody listening up. Ready? See, Megan, same girl. She texted me later that day. She said, by the way, she said a friend of mine's mother was sent to the hospital. She was overweight, diabetic, pneumonia, and got COVID. Had lots of health issues and scarring on lungs from being sick for many years prior. She died yesterday. Her son, who was not vaccinated, was refused entry to say goodbye to his mother. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of extremes that people are pushing and going towards. Who won't even let you see your own family member.
Well, it's only going to take one bad case
What
of
if
that.
What if that's? Let's think. What if it's your mother? I know if it's my mother.
I'm getting in there.
You bet.
They don't have enough people there to stop
That's
me.
correct. But I'm not saying I'm not encouraging any violence at all. But I'm just saying this hits home. What if it's your mother or your father, your wife, your husband?
But you're seeing more of that.
People got to start thinking that.
Early on, people said this, that, the other thing. But now there's more and more people that this is affecting.
Yeah,
and those people are starting to talk, and those numbers are starting to rise. And that is what they are afraid of.
Yep.
It's not going to be media that's going to change the mind of people. It's going to be face-to-face.
Public.
Right.
Mutual connections that's going to change that.
A civil war is upon us in a way. The vaccinated versus the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
The division, the divisive rules, mandates, and, for example, not being able to see your own mother.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he's not inciting any type of violence saying that.
Nope.
We're just stating the obvious.
As I'm saying before, I'm never inciting violence, but I'm just telling you it's here.
You hear the term,
us.
the fog of war.
Yeah.
When stuff, you're not really sure what's right, what's wrong, because it's so early, you don't know what's going on. And this is the fog of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Early on, we didn't really know. So we looked to our government, to our leaders, to the people that are supposed to protect us, the CDC, to make medical decisions, to kind of guide us. And then since then, instead of getting more clarity, we got more fog.
I know.
Yeah.
And nobody knows which direction to go. And the liberals have capitalized on that.
Yep.
And they've started introducing more mandates, introducing more, it's just more of a control grab across the board with everything.
If you're scared and confused, you're more likely to comply.
And if what he just said made you mad, rewind the episode and listen to it again.
Yeah. And we hate to leave you on a cliffhanger like that, or not a cliffhanger, but, a negative fire up. But you know what? Like Dr. B just said, this is what's happening. It's happening to more and more people. So you should really be aware of what's going on around you, and don't let it happen to you or your family. Does anybody else want to add anything? Or?
No, I just want to thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you
giving
so
us some
much.
Absolutely,
amazing
guys. Yeah, it was
information.
neat.
Thank you so much.
Yep, a lot of fun.
Well, I think that rounds up episode 6 of American Sons Podcast. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Give us a like, give us a share if you found some usefulness to the episode. And if you have any questions or anything, we can certainly relay it to Dr. B and then get back on our social medias with an answer. So by all means, please message us.
Yeah, we
Thanks
want that
again for
feedback.
listening.
Want that feedback for sure. All right, guys. Well, cheers to another ending, and don't forget to thank all of your firemen, police officers, military personnel, EMTs, and nurses and doctors who are on the front lines still to this day.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
I am the American son, never backing down, ain't never gonna run. I am the American son, never backing down, ain't never gonna run. I am the American son, never backing down, ain't never gonna run. I am the American son, gonna take it to my grave when my day is.